Hello.
Hey, welcome. There's a couple of faces popping. All right. Let's give it a minute. I'm Mike Senneff. I'm founder of Natura, but representing green plants for green buildings. So we're right at 301. Let's just give it to 302, see if there's any lingerers coming. Hope everybody's having a good day and busy starting off their new year with plenty of activity.
Oh, it's active, all right.
Yeah, it really is. Especially with those that are doing holiday takedown and then preparing for the new year with getting their targets or sales targets set up. Those working with the sales team, getting them going, and of course TPIE coming up next week. And I hope many of you are able to make it to TPIE. Okay, well, I think that's a long enough of a wait for others. So once again, welcome. This is Mike Senneff. I am the founder of Natura. We're based here in Texas with operations in the north part of Florida, Orlando, Tampa, Sarasota, and so forth. But really, my role today is to represent Green Plants for Green Buildings and introduce everybody on the call to the Interior Industry Growth Fund. So what I'm going to do is give you a bit of a history of green plants for green buildings, for that matter, but also where did this fund come from? What is a fund of this nature? Explain a little bit about that, let you know where the balances are and so forth. And then what we're really doing is an initiative to grow the fund. I do want to open it up for questions and answers at the end. So we'll be able to do that. If there's something that is super pressing, I'm kind of an informal person, so just take yourself off mute and say, hey, slow down, or explain yourself, and I'd be happy to do that. So let's go ahead and get started. So what I really want to start with was a little bit of history of Green Plants for Green Buildings, why it even exists, and how is this fund formed. So Green Plants for Green Buildings really is an initiative that started in 1998. Many of you would know Dick Ott, who has also founded the National Interiorscape Network, but he approached several individuals, me included at that time, really talking about a concept of how can we have an initiative that will raise the tide, so to speak, within the interior industry. When I say that, I'm using his terminology because Dick would say high tide floats all boats. So how do we bring the tide up for the interior landscape industry in terms of having more of an awareness of plants, the benefits of plants, reaching decision makers, and that type of thing. So with that, there was an initiative that was kicked off called the Interior Industry Growth Initiative, and that was back in 1998. Some of you may recall the ALCA, which is the American Institute of Landscape Contractors. There was an interior landscape division there, and so he brought it to ALCA, to the interior group, and said, hey, this is important, let's get it going. And we thought the same thing. I was serving at that time. And so the members of that board, we all pledged money towards it. And then some really pioneers of the industry, Gary Mangum, McCrae Anderson, several others, they generated a lot of money in a short period of time, about $800,000, in fact, over $800,000 in this initiative. That's what formed Plants at Work, and some of you may recall that entity, and it really was having the same purpose as what Green Plants for Green Buildings is doing today, and that's developing educational courses, going to national conferences, representing plants, the benefits of plants. And back then, really where most of the research, as you all may recall, was on the cleaning of the air aspect, some of the NASA studies and that type of thing. But nonetheless, it was really focused on showing the benefits of plants from a health standpoint, and that was really important messaging. Not too long afterwards, that whole group was rebranded to Green Plants for Green Buildings, and that was in 2008, I believe it was. We rebranded to Plants at Work, and that's who we are today. So the thing about Plants at Work, we have a big task, and we're not doing research at Plants at Work. We're not formulating the content, but what we do is communicate the aesthetic, the well-being, and economic benefits of nature in the built environment. And we did kind of tweak that word. At one time, it was plants in the built environment, but as you know, there's a lot of other elements such as moss walls, even artificial plants that represent different aspects of biophilia. So really what the role and the mission of Green Plants for Green Buildings is to communicate the benefits of nature in the built environment. So the thing is most companies, we want to do that in our individual markets, right? But we really don't have the budget to do that. So that's the purpose of what we do. And we really have been super successful over the years with at least half a dozen CEU courses where we have registered trainers getting out to architectural firms across the country. And I don't know about your markets, but plants are hot. There is a lot going on. There are some of the biggest projects being installed right now that I've seen in my 40-year history in the business. And talking with colleagues from Philadelphia through Texas, just incredible projects. Talking to one colleague just yesterday, he said he's got the largest project going in this month than all of his entire sales of commercial installs all of last year. So architects, whether it's the Genslers of the world or those that are specifying, there is a lot going on. And that didn't happen by accident. There's been a lot of work trying to point out the benefits of plants, creating the content to educate architects and so forth. So Green Plants for Green Buildings has a huge role in that. And those of you that are supporters, and I believe everybody on the call is, thank you so much, because that's really what's sustaining this effort to communicate those benefits. So, but the issue that we really have is, how do we continue to bring more content? How do we penetrate deeper into the market with the messaging of the benefits of plants? And we operate on a rather small budget with our operating fund. So what we created was an endowment, which is the Interior Industry Growth Fund, which is really totally separate from the operating budget of Green Plants for Green Buildings. In fact, the endowment, the Interior Industry Growth Initiative, is not anything that's even housed or owned by Green Plants for Green Buildings, but it was created in coordination with the National Horticulture Foundation based in Florida. And so it's really a solid group. And what the National Horticulture Foundation does is they invest money from their endowments to further research, grower initiatives, marketing studies on plants, and that type of thing. So a little bit of history on the National Horticulture Foundation in its early years, and it's about a 35-year-old organization. And some of you may know Dr. Joe Shaloni, a grower. He had the tropical, what was his company? Well, it was Tropical Computers later, but it was, gosh, some of you may know, the name Ornamental was in it, Ornamental Plants or something of that nature. But Joe Shaloni and his family, his brother, they've been really involved in the industry for over 40, probably 50 years. They would have challenges in their growing of their crops. They would have disease, they would have pests, things they didn't recognize. And back at this time, 40, 50 years ago, they'd pass the hat. They say, hey, let's collect some money from fellow growers, peer growers. Let's take it to the University of Florida. Let's give them the money. Let's investigate this issue, and let's come up with a solution. And they did that numerous times over the years. But they said, you know what, we need a sustainable way to do this. We need to create a fund that we can have money available each and every year for these causes. So that's where the National Horticulture Foundation was founded, and it was really in response to grower needs. But just to back up what they actually created, they created an endowment. And some of us may not be as familiar with what an endowment really is or how it works. So let me explain. So an endowment is when you invest money into a fund, which is called an endowment. That money that principal base is they're earning investment interest through various sources. Could be money market, could be equities, various things. It's all managed by professionals, but it's really the earnings from that money that is utilized for the purposes of the endowment. So whatever's contributed to create the endowment, that base, sometimes it's referred to as a corpus, which is the body of money. That money is never spent. That money is there perpetually, literally for generations. It's in an endowment for beyond any of our lives. So that's what the National Horticulture Foundation Endowment is, and it's been super successful over the years. There's over $4 million in that endowment, and as I said, they use it for all type of causes, mostly related to grower needs, but also scholarships, marketing studies, and that type of thing. They actually have, over the years, Green Plants for Green Buildings had submitted grant requests, and that's the formality of any entity, whether it's research or a scholarship, or if you're looking for monies out of an endowment, you're formally putting in a grant request, it's reviewed, and then money is appropriated for that year to whoever they would select. And over the years, they have selected Green Plants for Green Buildings. The marketing video we did years ago, which was the one that was, what was the name of that one? The Living Plant, the one that was filmed showing a Steve Jobs type of a messaging on plants. That was created in part from funding from the National Horticulture Foundation. They funded some new CEU courses, and so they've been very good to Green Plants for Green Buildings. Now, you might ask, why not just continue to invest there? The reason is that endowment, that main endowment, is very, very broad, and it's very much focused on the growing industry and marketing causes there, and so forth. It wasn't interior landscape specific. So we thought, hey, and even though several interior landscapers were putting money towards it, how much better would it be to have an interior landscape specific fund that we could use for purposes that we want to identify? And that's where the Interior Industry Growth Fund was created. And you can see even the name of it, Interior Industry Growth Fund, goes back to the original beginnings of what's now Plants at Work, which was the Interior Industry Growth Initiative. So that's where the name comes from. So the whole fund was started, the Interior Industry Growth Fund was started in December of 2021. And with that, there was 40 individuals, and there was a lot of phone calling, a lot of reaching out to get this fund started. 40 people contributed $335,000 within about 30 days. It was just incredible. From December of 21 through the end of TPIE of 2022, we had $335 committed, most of it collected. You know, I won't say bad debt, but there was a few people that we had to keep calling. But by the middle of the year of 2022, we did get fully funded, and that money has been invested. The cool thing about how the National Horticulture Foundation works is they have a third-party investment group. It's Raymond James. Some of you may be familiar with Raymond James as an investment house, and they have averaged an 8% return on the money that the National Horticulture Foundation has. That's year in, year out, recessionary years, fast growth years, 8% return. So it's been very, very successful. They're conservative when they need to be and aggressive, but we're really happy with that. So now the way our relationship is working with the National Horticulture Foundation is they own, when we make pledges and donate money to the Interior Industry Growth Fund, that fund is owned by the National Horticulture Foundation. It's no longer part of Green Plants for Green Buildings. However, we have a written contract with them on how these funds are to be utilized. And there's three main buckets that the funds are spent on, all specifically for interior landscape purposes. It's interior landscape research, interior landscape education, and interior landscape marketing. So it's very much a specific fund that's for us. It's for our group. It's for the interior landscape community. And really happy about that. And as I said, from when the fund was created in 2022, essentially when we were funded, we had really a downturn in the market, but we really have had success even in the downturn. They're very conservative. The investment was mostly in money market funds, and we had about $10,000 generated in the first year. And that money is going to be spent. We put in our grant request. It was approved. It's going to be sending representatives of the industry, including Green Plants for Green Buildings, to a national architecture conference this year. It's going to be later this year. It's the American Institute of Architects Conference on Architecture and Design. And that's going to be held in Washington, D.C. We have a custom-made island booth to be loaded with plants. We're going to be having a big presence. And again, this is a result of the contributions that were made 2 years ago to this fund. So again, the whole principle is not spent. This is just first year generated earnings. So with this, thank you, Casey. I see a little heart there. So with this fund, it's been 2 years since we really had a push to grow it, and we're making another push to grow the fund. We would like to get it doubled by TPIE, and by the end of this current year, 2024, our goal is to grow the fund up to $750,000. So that's more than doubling the fund. But if we look at the averages in terms of the investment interest that has been earned at 8%, that will spin off $60,000 each and every year for purposes that we would want to identify to use the money. So I may have mentioned this, but we have an advisory group. We, meaning Green Plants for Green Buildings, can appoint advisors, 3 to 5 advisors that would sift through the grants that were being requested to use the funds from the Interior Industry Growth Fund. You know, how do we use the money? We have advisors that say, we think this is a worthy project. We think this is another worthy project. And that's how the funds get dispersed and utilized. This current year, and anybody who is interested in being part of that group, you're welcome. We're a volunteer organization. This current year, Jan Goodman is on the advisory committee to the National Horticulture Foundation, as is Shane Pliska, interior landscaper with Plantera out of Detroit, Michigan area. And I'm on that advisory group. So it's going to be rotating, but it's going to be an advisory group made up of us, of our industry and our peers. So this year at TPIE, we're going to have a informal meeting with Bill Lyon. He's got some ideas of what future research could look like, beneficial research. It's going to be kind of a brainstorming of what types of causes would best be served to utilize. But again, it's a very specific fund. It's for interior landscapers, which is all of us, and that's how the money's being utilized. So with the fund, one thing I'd like to point out, there's been contributions. The largest individual contribution was $25,000 2 years ago. A lot of interiorscapers came in at the $10,000 level, a handful at $15,000 and $20,000, and a slew came in at a $5,000 level. I know that's a lot of money. We all understand that. But the really interesting thing is when you put in $5,000 or more, you are creating a family endowment for you or your company, and this endowment is named for you. It has it's something that will go on in perpetuity, essentially, and it's something that you can point back to as a legacy. And really, some people are looking at giving to the endowment. There's really two camps, if you will. There's those that are still building their businesses, like all of us, I believe, on the call. You know, there's benefits to reaching out to specifiers on, you know, why plants are beneficial, why we need more plants in the built environment, and research that shows the return on investment of putting plants in commercial spaces. We're growing our business. We want the benefit of this research, the education, and all the marketing focuses. But there's also others that have exited the industry and have been extremely generous of giving back to the fund. And in those cases, it's more of a thank you. It's like, this is the industry that built my career. This is something I can give back to what really provided for me and my family and blessed us with those opportunities and so forth. So you have two different groups, and some are actually in both groups. So again, we're trying to build the fund this year. Certainly would appreciate anybody that wants to contribute any amount. But if you would start with a smaller amount this year, for instance, say it's $1,000, and you want to continue to build, if you put in $1,000 for 5 years, once you hit that $5,000 level, you get your own named endowment. So with that, I'm going to screen share real quick and take you to the National Horticulture Foundation website. And let's see if I can do this effectively. There we are. Astara, can you give me a thumbs up if you see the screen? Okay, awesome. Okay, so this is the National Horticulture Foundation's website. You can peruse it at your leisure. You can see the different navigations at the top. It's all about investing, talking about the contributors, some of the research initiatives, again, very much focused on grower and marketing initiatives. They do have scholarships and so forth, so that's a big part of the good things they do. Where I'm going to take us to is this contribute button right here at the top right. Make a difference today, and everything we are doing is making a difference. And there's more information here to back up what an endowment is, some facts about the National Horticulture Foundation. What is perpetuity? As I mentioned, any money put into an endowment is never spent. It's just the earnings that are spent, so it goes on in perpetuity. But if we hit this complete list of current endowments, which I'll do, it's going to bring up various endowments that are under the National Horticulture Foundation. So really, it's one fund for them, but if you are a contributor at various levels, and I'm going to start at the bottom, you could be at this level called a giver at $1,000 to $25.99. You could be at the $2,500 to $4,999. If I click this for a second, you'll see there's a lot of companies and names, but there's nothing about it being a specific endowment for these groups. I'll back this up and once again get to the point of $5,000 or over, which is this box. You'll see now these companies are starting to surface with an endowment name, meaning they've been recognized for having $5,000 or more given to this fund. You'll see some of the companies that you recognize, some of the interior-scapers and Good Earth Plants, Jim Mumford, Green Oak, many others, Grundy's and so forth. In the future, what I am working with the National Horticulture Foundation on is to have a hyperlink for each one of these endowments. What that means is we'll have almost like a microsite that you could tell a little bit about yourself, your story, your history, images of your company and that type of thing. So again, when it goes on to perpetuity, it would be nice not to have simply a name. There's Amlings, of course. So I'm going to back up once again, and I'm going to go to the top of this page here, and I'm going to click on the contributions over $100,000. And what you'll see then is the Interior Industry Growth Fund is right here, kind of in another area. You'll see companies that are listed in their individual buckets, as I just showed you, but also the Interior Industry Growth Fund, as I said, was at $335,000 in its first year of creation. So if I click on the Growth Fund right here, you'll see some specifics about the interior landscape industry. You'll see a narrative on the importance of the work here, but then you'll see those individuals that have very specifically contributed to the Interior Industry Growth Fund. And so just another place of more of a summary at this point. You can see our largest contributor at the top. There's many here in the $20,000 to $25,000 level, and various, you'll see interior landscapers, individuals, you'll see container suppliers and so forth, and really some nice amounts given the first year. So this is year one giving to these endowments. And then you'll see there's some other that you just say donations. There's a giver level, but other amounts given because they really haven't hit the category level of 1,000 to 24.99. So all donations to the Inter-Industry Growth Fund are welcome. And over the years, or even with your first contribution to make a big statement for the very beneficial causes, you would be listed in this section, and again, having hyperlinks to your own microsite. I spoke to Linda Reindel, who is the director of, I'll just say NHF, since National Horticulture Foundation is a lot of words. She is going to be updating this. This is current as of December of last year. So this doesn't include any of the fundraise yet for this year. But I've spoken to numerous people, and as has our fundraising team, and we've got many, many people doubling their initial contribution. We've got close to $100,000 in additional funds raised. So we went from 335 to 435, and we're making a big splash at TPIE next week. So with that, we have a lot of partners working with us. The National Interscape Network, Art Campbell is really doing a lot to promote it to his network, as are many others. So really what we're doing with this fund, I'll use the word future-proofing the industry, because what we're creating is a fund that is created in perpetuity. Earnings are spent for specific causes. Those causes are directed by the advisory team that's created by volunteers, that anybody that wants to be part of it. Shane Pliska, for instance, raised his hand and said, I'd like to be on that advisory team. And he is. So anybody that has an interest, you're certainly welcome to join. So I want to leave with just a statement. Many of you know McCrae Anderson, who is one of the industry pioneers. He helped launch Plants at Work initially. He's retired from the industry. And as I mentioned, there's kind of two buckets of individuals that will want to contribute to the fund. Those that are building their businesses rapidly, and they see this as a really effective, sustainable way to reach out to specifiers, architects, designers, BOMA members, all the decision makers. There's those that are growing their businesses that realize the importance of this. And then there's others that are looking back saying thank you to the industry for what you've created. And some are in both camps. But let me just read McCrae's words here. He says, why do I give to NHF and within the structure of the Inter-Industry Growth Fund? I believe there's a time in your business's life and in your life where you find your sweet spot. That is where your business and you are on solid financial footing. You've taken good care of your employees' health and well-being, and it becomes time to give back to your community. Part of my community is the industry that gave me an opportunity to find my sweet spot. So now I chose to plant a tree under whose shade I will never sit. It's important we tell the world that our interior environment is as important as the exterior environment in which we live. So I choose to plant a tree or two. I trust you will too. That's McCrae Anderson. And if you know McCrae, you know he is a very creative and poetic person, and I think one of the most creative interior landscape architects that I've ever seen his work, and certainly is a good friend. So I think I've covered what I wanted to. We talked about the history of green plants for green buildings, the formation of what ultimately now is Green Plants for Green Buildings. We talked about how the National Horticulture Foundation was created from its infancy, from a grower need standpoint, and how they are funding different research for growers and marketing and scholarships and good things. And then we realized that we don't have anything specific for the interior landscape industry until we created the Interior Industry Growth Fund. We've had tremendous success 2 years ago in building the fund. In fact, the board of directors at NHF were just amazed that we could grow that fund so quickly as we have. And so we want to continue to build it. And it's really from contributions from everybody on this call, the rest of our industry peers that will help grow the fund. And really appreciate your attentiveness to it. To To donate, you can do it directly from the website I just took you to, the National Horticulture Foundation. You also can get there from links from Green Plants from Green Buildings website. So different ways to get you there, but it will take you to the same secure donation page that is at the NHF website. So I am very open to answer any questions on what was presented or any other questions you have about this fund or anything for that matter on what we're doing at Green Plants and Green Buildings. So Jen, I don't know if there's if everybody can take themselves off mute individually, but certainly open for questions and answers. So there may not be any. Once again, the fund is something that goes on in perpetuity. Those that were giving the first time, there were large amounts given, and we realized that, but we also realized the importance of the work and the importance of creating ultimately a foundation for you, a legacy foundation for your company. Be recognized, show that you're giving to the industry, be counted amongst your peers that are giving back. Some have the ability to give time, others don't. Some have the ability to give time and contributions, but give back. This is a great industry. We're in a fantastic time. We really want to keep our foot on the gas pedal as we influence specifiers towards more greenery in our environments. We've had a fantastic year. So why don't we give back some to the fund so we can continue to see the acceleration of specifying of green plants in our commercial projects. I'll just pause one more moment, see if there's any other questions or comments.
Just to thank you, Mike, for you and all the stuff you guys are doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Genevieve. You're welcome.
I just had a question, Mike, about is it one-time giving, or is there an option to do monthly giving or recurring donations?
Yeah, thank you. And there is certainly an option to do the monthly. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just really quickly go back, because I think that's important that you mentioned that. When you do the contribute button right here, if you hit contribute now, there's a couple ways to get there. This is what the site looks like. It's a secure pledge site. You can give any amount. Those that have given large amounts, you can hit the other category. But if you want to make it a smaller amount, you can do one time, weekly, monthly, annually, fill out credit card information. And what you'll do is you get towards the bottom of this, you'll look what my contribution is used for. With this drop down right here, you'd select the Interior Industry Growth Fund. Once you get to the $5,000 level or greater, you'll have your own named endowment. Linda Reindell, who directs the National Horticulture Foundation, she'll have a form that you can fill out. It's really a written agreement between you and NHF that acknowledges what you're doing, acknowledges your named fund, whatever your name wants to be. You can see some are family named funds, others are business named funds, but that's something that would be coordinated through Linda once you're at that $5,000 level or greater.
Does Green Plants for Green Buildings do any fundraisers or anything around Interior Plant Week, Earth Day, any of those things where there would be a fundraiser option to raise money for the industry?
We have at times at TPIE, we've had different welcome parties, receptions, and so forth that generally was like funding a cause, so to speak. Like one of the causes was that video that we did, the plant video where the Steve Jobs style video. But in other times it was funding towards a particular new registered trainer program. But we're not doing that this year. But the gala, those that are going to the International Plantscape Awards Gala that Elliot Bennett is putting on, all the proceeds that exceed his costs, he's putting back into the fund. So if you're going to the gala, putting projects in for submission, all those fees there's a lot of expense, obviously, in putting on a gala, but any proceeds are going back into this fund. Any other questions, comments? Hey, well, thank you guys. Thanks for taking time of your day, out of your day to participate and be present. Now you've got the information, you know more about it. And gosh, just encourage you all to participate. If you reach out to your peers, if you're behind it, help me out. Reach out to somebody else, bring a friend along. Let's do this together. So, y'all
Thanks,
have a great
Mike.
day.
Have a good one.
Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome. Bye.